Hello guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, breaking down the latest Chelsea news on a regular basis. Today's episode, transfer speculation, kind of plus transfer frustration from supporters, the lack of activity. We'll go into the current situation with Chelsea, a big article from Simon Johnson in The Athletic where he sort of broke down some of the bigger targets and maybe kind of backup options that Chelsea could go for this summer. Quite interesting to speak about in terms of striker and also central midfield. And as well, want to touch on pre-season, Chelsea's first game against Peterborough on Saturday. We didn't get to see any highlights of the game, a few pictures. We know the scoreline and we also know some of the players who performed well. So I'll get into a bit of that as we move into the next stage of pre-season, as players from the Euros begin to return to Cobham. And then, of course, we get closer and closer to the start of Chelsea's season in the Super Cup and also the Premier League. But before we get into any of that good stuff, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell. Hoping to reach 25k subs, a massive landmark for the channel before we kick off. I think I'll go for Crystal Palace. That still to me instinctively feels like the big first game of the season. Of course, Villarreal a few days before that in the Super Cup, which means a lot to some people, but I think the Premier League absolutely starting will be sort of that mark for me, and especially in terms of the goal for the channel to reach 25k. It'd be wonderful to reach that goal. So if you can help, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Hit that like button too, because it helps new people find it as well. And I want to say a massive thank you to the guys at Lucid FC for supporting and sponsoring Let's Talk Chelsea in 2021. Lucid FC, great brand, been supporting Son of Chelsea and in particular Let's Talk Chelsea for months now, basically the whole year and going throughout the whole year. Got some great collabs once again with Lucid coming, Betts and Chet D Hart brothers, but also Chelsea fans. They've got a new fashion film that's premiered now on the Fashion App Network that you can get on iPhone and Android, and there is a permanent discount code for you guys to use on Lucid FC, CFC at checkout for $15 or £12 discount. And it is sale season as well at Lucid over the summer, so they're offering the Son of Chelsea discount on top of already marked down goods. So you can pick up this t-shirt, which is good graphic t-shirt, especially in the humid weather in the UK at the moment. It's better to have t-shirts like this because especially in London it does get very humid. So thank you once again Lucid for sponsoring Let's Talk Chelsea in 2021. But let's kick off with pre-season. The pre-season game on Saturday, I didn't do a review for it because I was busy on Saturday, but as well we didn't get to watch the game, so it kind of felt a bit irrelevant to me to make a full review of a game I haven't seen. But I thought it was interesting just seeing some of the pictures, some of the players involved. We got kind of a leak sort of in terms of the formation, but for the very first preseason game, I think it is kind of irrelevant. The very first preseason game is usually just about fitness, just about getting those players back on the pitch, getting them those minutes. Usually it's the most kind of foreign team to the one we're going to see in the Premier League. You know, a lot of players who featured on Saturday who will not be featuring at the start of the season, the likes of Davide Zappacosta, Danny Drinkwater, you know, players who most likely don't have a future at Chelsea. But it was curious to see the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi maybe playing in a more preferred position. Would that be a big thing going into the season? Can he sort of maintain form and fitness and trying to get into the team under Thomas Tuchel? Hakim Ziyech too, Adam Newson, friend of the channel, of course, Ziyech scored a hat-trick in the 6-1 victory on Saturday, and he wrote a piece for Football London, Adam Newson, what Hakim Ziyech did against Peterborough to impress Thomas Tuchel. Really good piece that goes into his numbers from last season, scoring goals from inside the box and kind of improving from last season, because there have been some discussions around Ziyech's future, sort of the struggles he found. Can he find his way into the first team under Thomas Tuchel as a regular? That's a big discussion point. Tammy Abraham scored, Armando Broja scored, who of course signed his new contract yesterday at Chelsea. That was officially confirmed, and Christian Pulisic too. So I think all the players that scored, interestingly enough, were players that, you know, and are players that I think are going to have futures at Chelsea. Maybe with the exception of Tammy Abraham, which we will get to as well. Just another piece of news, Mark Guehi, of course, confirming now, it was confirmed by Crystal Palace yesterday that he has signed for Crystal Palace on a 5-year deal. We spoke about this on Thursday's episode of Let's Talk Chelsea, so if you want to hear my extended thoughts on that move, please go and watch that. Chelsea will receive around 18 million for Mark Guehi, plus a sell-on clause, plus the ability to match any bid that's accepted in the future. And just on top of that, Olivier Giroud's move to AC Milan was confirmed as well. So farewell to both of them. Different situations, you know, Olivier Giroud, wonderful player, wonderful signing for Chelsea, one of the best in recent years. Mark Guehi is a little bit different, you know, what could have been and what may still be, knowing Chelsea's history of re-signing players. So I hope for both of them they have great seasons moving on. So let's get into the transfer situation. I think firstly, before I get into the piece and the details that Simon Johnson sort of brings up in his piece, I think the first thing to speak about is support of frustration at the moment, and sort of irritation over the lack of movement, the repetitive stories in particular on Erling Haaland, where it feels like now, I mean, maybe I've got my dates date's wrong, but it feels like over a month now, maybe even longer, we've heard basically the same report over and over again. The basic details are Chelsea are interested in Erling Haaland. It's going to take a lot to get Haaland out of Borussia Dortmund. Rome is going to have to pay a lot. The player apparently wants to come to Chelsea. These are all things that have been spun and moved around, sort of words changing in sentences to basically give you the same message. Nothing massive has happened since then. And of course, there is concern in previous windows, and it's the same kind of in midfield with the Declan Rice links and the hope that we could sign someone in there, the need to sign someone in there, that we could be falling into similar traps of the previous two windows, 2015 and 2017, windows following a massive triumph in a major competition that we didn't strengthen and we didn't improve the squad massively, and that led to quite disappointing seasons. What I would say is this transfer window, because we are still in the early slash middle stages of it, is that the situation for Chelsea in the transfer window is a lot different to last summer. You know, last summer was quite crazy. It was incredible covering on the channel. You know, it felt like every week there was news. Chelsea don't need to spend loads and loads and loads on 5 to 6 players. We're not in the same situation we were last year. The amount of players we bought last year, in particular smart ones who were going to be longer term signings, your likes of Timo Werner, your likes of Kai Havertz, Hakim Ziyech, Ben Chilwell, Edouard Mendy. You know, we had to do a lot of business last summer to really improve that squad, and I think you saw the fruits of that work at the back end of last season, of course, winning the Champions League. We knew going into this summer, we really, I mean, you could argue maybe just one position, which was the striker, you know, improving our goal scoring. And as well for me, central midfield, especially now Billy Gilmore's gone out on loan too. So at most 2 positions, we've constantly heard, as Simon Johnson reiterates in his piece, you know, Adama Traore is a right wing back. But for me, that kind of feels like the least important of those 3, and centre back 2. But a lot of people would argue, and I kind of have a lot of belief in this as well. You know, I have a lot of trust in the current centre backs. I mean, the argument could be that if Tuchel wants to move to a 4 in defence, is he going to have an issue without someone? You know, we have a lot of centre backs who I think work well in a back 3, maybe not as well in a back 4. So that's why maybe we want to sign a centre back. But it's just not the same situation. And the 2 players, the 2 main targets we're rumoured to be going for, are going to cost a lot of money. These are massive deals. Haaland is going to break the bank. In a lot of ways, Declan Rice too would likely break the bank, or at least it would be a significant fee. To expect both of those deals to be done like that is just unrealistic. Unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. You know, transfers, they're not like FIFA. You don't just go into, you know, the scouting network, you don't just pick a player, you know, submit the bid, it's all done within like under 2 minutes. That's just not how it works in real life. And you know, I think that the wage structure problem, I think with Erling Haaland, seeing how the club as well wants to make money from players, you know, we've sold about, you know, 50 million made from Gurhi and Tomori sales, and other players too that we've sold already, you know, Olivier Giroud, you know, trying to make that money, you know, selling players to then buy players. That's sort of the structure that Mourinho has gone for in recent years and really benefited Chelsea. So I think it will take a lot, you know, in terms of them wanting to sell players before they can buy players for a big fee, which is frustrating. I think we have to wait till the end of the window to see what happens. I think that's just the most rational way of going about things. I can't say that there are concerning elements in terms of letting some young talent go that does frustrate me, that I think could hurt Chelsea, not this season, but maybe seasons in the future that we've seen before. But until something massive happens, which we hope can be in the coming weeks, don't go overboard. Chelsea are champions of Europe. But let's get into the big piece, which was about, you know, Haaland and Rice still stalling, but can Ings and Tchouaméni satisfy fans? So kind of what Simon Johnson was going into, the fan frustration, looking at this summer, the frustration and kind of the doubt over signing someone like Haaland. Dortmund don't want to sell, massive fee for Declan Rice. So is there a plan B option? One of the new names in terms of striker position thought to be on Tuchel's radar, Simon Johnson reports, is Stuttgart's Sasa Kalajic. I've probably pronounced that wrong, who impressed for Austria at the Euros this summer. Standing at 6 feet 7 inches tall, he wouldn't go unnoticed. Stuttgart, who haven't been approached by Chelsea yet, will take a lot of persuading to cash in on the 24-year-old striker. The German Bundesliga club have already raised 34 million in sales this summer, which was the target set before the market opened. So we'll demand a similar amount for the striker, which is quite sizable when you consider he'll be used as more of a backup and is still developing his skills. Danny Ings is entering his final year of his Southampton deal. Chelsea might be tempted to look in his direction if nothing else materialises, even though he turns 29 this week. In central midfield, which is another key position, it is thought the club are giving serious consideration to acquiring Monaco's highly rated 21-year-old Aurélien Tchouaméni instead. Unlike Rice, the France under-21 international obviously isn't proven in the Premier League, but he would cost significantly less. We have discussed Tchouaméni in recent weeks. I did sort of an in-depth thing on him that I think I'll probably put on the cards up there, so you can go and watch that episode where we broke down what he does, what he's been doing at Monaco, how he's developed. I think Out of the names Simon Johnson brings up here, I think Tchouaméni is the one that if he signed for us this summer, I think is a very smart signing. I think it's a good signing. Doesn't mean he's the ready-made deal. I don't think it's the same level as Declan Rice, but Tchouaméni is a player I rate. I think he would offer something we don't have in central midfield and would cost significantly less. So I think the point I'm about to make, I don't put Tchouaméni in this category. I think he's a different type of player that I do think would be a smart signing by Chelsea this summer. My problem with INGS, my problem with a lot of backup options is just, especially if the idea is we're going to sell Tammy Abraham as well, who apparently it's quite clear Tuchel didn't rate. Maybe he does now, didn't really trust Tammy Abraham at all at the back end of last season. My issue is we do go into 2017 territory where we're going for B, C and D options off the back of a brilliant Champions League win as well. For me, when I'm looking at striker, and this has kind of been my base sort of level for kind of every position this summer, are we significantly, when someone's targeted by Chelsea, are we significantly upgrading what we currently have? If the answer isn't yes, then I don't think it's the smartest move by Chelsea. Now, there is a problem in striker because we've just let Olivier Giroud go. So the argument could be, if you're going to send Broja out on loan, are you only going to have, Tammy and maybe Kai? And I know obviously Timo can play that role as well, but he predominantly under Tuchel has played sort of a left 10 position. If that continues, maybe Tuchel changes the formation and then Timo becomes more of a central striker. But if you're not going to keep Broja, then you probably need two strikers if as well we're looking to sell Tammy Abraham. So there just is the numbers problem there. If we're going to sell Tammy and Giroud, you need a striker. That's even, keeping Broja as well. I think you do need three strikers, because I put Kai in that sort of forward position now, in my opinion, when I'm assessing sort of the numbers in the squad. So that's a numbers issue there. But I do think that the sort of targets I'm looking at are Erling Haaland, Lukaku, Robert Lewandowski, who has once again been linked to Chelsea but quickly shot down. But, that's the sort of tier of player we're speaking about. That is the tier of player, to me, that significantly improves what we already have. The argument around a new striker, unless I'm mistaking something, has always been, let's upgrade what we have. Let's get a proven finisher. Let's get someone who is top quality. That was the phrase that Thomas Tuchel used post the Champions League. Top quality, big players, world-class players. Danny Ings is a good Premier League striker. Is he that player for me that I look at and I'm saying 30 million, it has to be done this summer? If that was the price, it could be a little bit less than that. No, he's not, unfortunately. Despite the fact I rate the player, I don't think he significantly improves what we have. And that's kind of the headache Chelsea have. Go with Kai Havertz, trusting Kai Havertz now. If we let Broja go on loan, if we let Tammy Abraham go as well, then Chelsea have more of a headache in that forward position. They probably do have to sign someone else. And that could be a Danny Ings. That could be someone else on top of that as well. Sort of a lesser option, sort of a plan B or C option. But the problem Chelsea currently have in the first team squad is the reason, selling the likes of Olivier Giroud, Fikayo Tomori, Mark Gurley, because the problem is we're struggling to sell the likes of Timothy, Bakayoko, Danny Drinkmore to players who are just, they're struggling to sell because they barely have any value at the moment, and in clubs, especially in the pandemic market, still affected, don't have the money to buy these players. And I don't want Chelsea to be in a position in 2 to 3 years where we have a similar situation where we spent 20 to 30 million on players, as I continue to say, who don't radically improve what we have, and in a few years' time we're struggling to sell them and they're limiting our business elsewhere. That can't continue to happen. The disasters of 15 and especially 17 shouldn't happen again. It doesn't mean you should overreact. It doesn't mean that Danny Ings wouldn't be a good player for the short term, potentially for Chelsea. I like the idea of, say, a perfect situation is you keep Tammy Abraham and you bring in Danny Ings. But if you let Tammy Abraham go and you bring in Danny Ings maybe for a short term, I don't think that's an amazing option, to be honest. I don't think it's a massive upgrade that I think when we're talking about the other forwards that have been linked, the big forwards like Haaland and Lukaku, who I do think radically transform what we currently have, in my opinion. Those are my thoughts on the current situation. As I said at the start, I don't think people should be overboard at the moment, getting too dramatic about it. I think you've got to have faith in Thomas Tuchel, what he did with the squad to get them to a Champions League. I think the big question mark is the Premier League. It's sustaining that form over a Premier League season. I've said that I think striker is probably the key position to that, but I still firmly believe that if you can't get the best out there, I'd rather keep on developing the likes of Kai Havertz and Timo Werner and see what they can do for a second season. That's not the way Chelsea operates. We want the ready-made deal every single summer, and we want to keep on buying new players. But I just think that it's kind of long-term squad health over the short term, which has kind of been a conflict at Chelsea in recent years. That's just my sort of stance on it. Please let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this news video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.